Hi everyone and welcome back. It's Tom Stanley and I am ready for another day working on the Juke. Today it's all about getting these front fender wells sorted out, getting the clearance that we need on both the front and rear sides of the tires. After having had an assistant in the vehicle turning the tires left and right for me, I now know not only where I've got impact issues but how severe they are, and I've got every confidence that on the front side we're going to get it sorted. It's going to require a bit more work with the heat gun, some more pushing and pulling in there, but yeah, I've got no worries that the front side of the tires are going to get the clearance that we need. On the back side, however, it's a different issue. There is a problem with a screw that secures what looks like the fender well trim, and the running board together, and that appears to be mounted into something pretty solid. Could be metal, could be just some more hard plastic. I don't know, it's hard to say with this vehicle. But yeah, if it was to involve like panel bashing, yeah, I'm not interested in getting to that level of body work on the thing. So if I can't get that backside to move, then I've got some decisions to make about these tires. Do I stay with the 235/65s, knowing that I've got some interference issues and maybe over time just wear on the tires will give us another millimeter or two of clearance that we don't currently have? Or do I drop them down to say a 235/60 and grab that clearance that I need just by going to a slightly smaller diameter on the tire? Well, there's no way to find out but to get in and do it, so I've got to get to work here. I'm going to break out the heat gun, do the work that we need to do on the front, and then see if I can come up with some kind of a genius solution on that back, and hopefully I'll get it sorted and I won't have to go to a smaller size tire. All right, I'm about to get into it. One more day on the Juke. All right, so looking at this with the tire turned fully to the left, you can see my only scraping area is right there, which is really tiny. That should be pretty easy to reshape with the heat gun. So I'm not too concerned about the front fender wells, as I've said before. We're going to look around to the rear fender wells, and in here it's a different story. Quite a bit of shiny scraping in this area, and as we saw the other day when the tires are being turned, it actually pushes this back and forth. Similarly on this side, but the bigger concern is this area right here. This screw, that's solid behind there, that's going into metal bodywork. I'm not keen to take all that apart, and I'm not keen to get into proper panel bashing on this thing to try to make some clearance. So I'll see what I can do with the heat gun to try to move this back a little further, but this one I think could be our limiting factor. Now I've spent about 20 minutes in here working this area. This lip where the rubbing was has been moved forward probably about, I'll guess, 5 to 10 millimeters. I've also worked with this area, and right here we hit, I believe it's going to be the washer bottle tank on the other side, and then down here we hit metal right here on this edge. So we do have some limitations. That's very firm under my finger right there. The only other concern I have is down here where we are starting to pull away from where we bolted that fender forward. So I think I've done about as much as I can do here, but I believe, given how small the interference issue was, I believe that I might just have it. So I'm going to turn this tire, bring it into that space, and see if we've got some clearance there now. Well, yes we do. With the side turned, I could just about get my fingers into here. So we've got pretty much about a centimeter clearance when it's turned to the left. I'll have to give it a spin to the right and see what happens when the other side of the tire comes into this space. Now with the tire basically pointed straight forward, there's just a mountain of clearance there now. And as I had carried on to full right lock, we got the same amount. As a matter of fact, it actually opens up. So the big issue on these fender wells is this outer edge of the tire as you turn opposite to the side of the vehicle you're on. In this case, we're on the left side of the vehicle. So if I'm turning the tires to the left, then we get interference here on this front, and I do believe I've resolved it. So now across on the left side, and again we see this area where the tire contacts, and I mean there's literally no clearance there. So we're going to try to get in there with a heat gun and again remold that space. You notice quite a different texturing here. The convolutions and such on the underside of this left side fender well are totally different than the right. Of course, with the right side having that windscreen wiper wash bottle there, that would make sense that they've got a different fender well on that side. But here, I think we're going to have the same type of success because it's really just this one lip that's causing the problem. So heating here and pushing in. Now while I'm doing this, I'm also heating around the areas because you're not just trying to smash that ridge down, you're trying to reshape the fender well. So yes, heating this and smashing it down, but also at the same time heating around these other areas and giving them a push and a mold so the whole fender well shape is changed. Well, about 20 minutes has passed, heating in this area to knock that ridge down, heating around these other areas just to generally reshape the panel, and then even back up in here, blowing heat into this area and around in here, and just by putting your hand back in there and kind of using some leverage against the tire gives you enough of a space that you can work the shape of the fender well to accommodate a reasonable amount of clearance. Now it's still pretty tight on this side, not as clear as on the other side, but where it was rubbing, I'm going to move this tire this direction and see if we now have clear space. And yes, it looks like we do. It's still very tight, but that's dramatically better than it was. And the tire did not impact the fender well as it came across in this direction. So I'll continue and move the tire to full lock on this side. And I suspect, as with the other side, as the tire continues in this direction, that clearance is just going to open right up. Well, I've had it going left and right for a few minutes and just checking in very small increments. And we've got clearance on both sides now. I do have an issue with this little bulby bit here. And it rolls around the lower side of the fender well lip on this side of the vehicle. That is still very close. So I think what I'm going to do here, a little bit of work just to mash that in. Like I've said, I've been trying not to do, but that is the one area that still is too close for my liking. So a little bit more work with heat and a little bit more of pushing around on the panel and see if I can't get that to move. Maybe a centimeter would be good enough, I think. I'm back and it's not even 5 minutes. That just works so ridiculously well. Heating this general area along through here, I was able to give that a nudge, and then it appears that it was rotating around where that screw that attaches this little air dam thing, it appeared to be rotating around that. As I pushed this in, this came back. We've got a much tighter engagement here at the lip of the fender well trim than we had, and we've got more clearance here. I also heated in this area. This guy does not want to move. This is a really rigid structure through here, so I'd probably have to get a lot more aggressive with the heat gun, probably up through this area to make it move. But we've got this out of the way. I'm going to rotate the tire now and just see how much additional clearance that's given us. With the tire now pointed straight ahead, I've got easy access, my hand going right back through here. Again, this is only where the issue starts, so I'm going to have to keep rotating that tire, and we'll see if this leading edge on the left side of the tire impacts where it was before, or if we've got clearance. And with a half rotation to the right, we're back to having just this very small amount of clearance, but up under there, we're not impacting. That's interesting. All right, let's see what happens. And now with another half rotation on the tire, we get into the area where we had issues before. I can bring my finger through here. That's that bulby bit. I'm just running my finger through it now. It's tight. It's about the thickness of my finger, but nonetheless, clearance is clearance. Perhaps just a little bit more heat just to give that thing a bit of a smash to flatten that bulb out. And I think we're going to have more than we need. Around the back, I got my whole thumb coming through. It's not until I reach that bulb where I start getting restriction. And right there, it's tight. Like I can bring my thumb through, but it's very close. And you can see the whole panel moving as I do. All right, so that little bulb, I'm going to work on that just a little bit more. Let's see if I can get that knocked down. I'm back after about 5 minutes. I heated the whole area around the panel, And look at that, I get my thumb through there now. So I've got clearance, the thickness of my thumb, that's probably a good 12 to 15 millimeters that I've got clearance. As we can see up here, it's tight, but where it was rubbing before, we've now got about a centimeter clearance coming through here. I think I've done as much as I can on this panel, and I'm pretty happy with the result. I can move my hand with the tire in its worst position. I can move my hand in and around and find at the least a centimeter space in all areas. Of course, a bit of road testing is going to prove whether this actually worked or not. This area here where the hard rubbing was, there's something metal behind there, so that's not going any further. And this was able to be pushed and shaped out and around. I can feel it quite nicely. I've kept most of the factory lines as well. That ribbing does create reinforcement and strengthen the panel, so I don't really want to lose that. I just wanted to get it out of the way, and I think I've done it. Now if we go around to the back side on this tire, we've got the same issue down in here. This screw, you can see the hard rubbing just on the side of the screw on this panel and slightly on the next section of that panel. So if we're rubbing on that screw, there's not a heck of a lot I can do on this side. I can work on the panel, but the screw is always going to be an issue. And the rubbing is beyond the screw, so it's not just a matter of maybe putting in a countersunk head screw. All right, I'll get back to work and see what I can come up with. Looking at the back side of the fender well, I found I'm actually in error. This does bend rather significantly. That screw can twist quite a long ways out of the way. However, you've got a hard line right here, and that happens to be where the scraping begins. So if this can be pulled back, I think there's still going to be scraping here. But then of course this is a big issue, and then as we keep going around, with the way the tire is locked right now you can't see it, but around back in behind here it also hits on the inner edge of that fender well. Now run into another hitch in this area. That's it, it's hitting something solid back there. So I would say we've got about 5 millimeters of clearance that we can gain there. If we can gain that and then extend it to the rest, we might be okay. But there and there are our limiting factors. All right, limiting factors aside, I better get to work and see what I can do. Well, that effort actually achieved a lot. I heated this whole area and blowing down in behind as well as best as I could with the heat gun. I bumped the setting up to 240 degrees. I was dealing with thicker plastic here, and worked over the whole area, coming in along this lip, kind of blowing up as well. And I gave it about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes of heat, and then got in here and gave a good push and held until she's cooled. And you can see quite a significant change in the shape, and that screw is right back. I don't think we're gonna have to worry about the screw hitting anymore. We still have this ridge, this isn't going anywhere, and we've still got this factor up here where we're hitting something in here, but we're much closer to our goal. By having this down, it's holding the panel in a better position to get this permanently down as far as it can go. All right, so I'm going to get back to work and see what I can achieve. Well, look at what we have here. We've got some pretty significant clearance now. This panel has bent in quite significantly, and by heating along in this area, you can see where it bulges down now. That used to not be the case. Heating along this lip, getting the whole panel area quite hot, and then pushing up, being careful not to kink or put a sharp point on this, but just pushing up on this whole panel. I was able to reshape it. Now I'm going to have to turn the tire and just see how much clearance we got where there's actually a problem when this edge comes in. But right now, just in neutral pointed, tires pointed straight forward position, we're looking pretty good. Well, this is looking like success to me. we've got a gap. The screw is right there, and we've got a good, I wouldn't quite call it a centimeter, but maybe could be a centimeter gap between where the screw impact and the impact on this panel was and where it is now. I'll turn the tire just a little bit further, but to be honest, we're passing the screw right now, so I don't think it's going to get any worse than this. And I would say right now this is quite adequate. Okay, the tire has gone in past the panel and the screw. I mean, this is all from where I've been heating and rubbing and pushing, so that's not impact marks there. We've gone right through past the screw, no impact. Now we still have a clearance issue here on this panel. You would think it would move, but every time I heat it, it doesn't. So probably longer term, I've got another session to do, but it's just going to be playing around with it. There's clearance there. There's the clearance that was of real concern was the screw in this area. I'll say that's sorted, so I don't really have much more to do other than play around in here and see if I can get a little bit more out of that general curvature of the fender well. But this area, I'm calling this a success. We've got all the clearance we need. We've got a slight reshaping of the panel, well, of the running board, and all the clearance I need for that tire against that hard surface and that screw. It's all clear now. I'm pretty darn excited. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm pretty darn excited. I'll go do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so we're on the right side of the vehicle now. The tire is slightly turned, and as you can see again where that screw is, I don't know if you can see the screw in there. Where that screw is, the tire is going to pass by. Here again, you can see the reshaping effort on this panel. This one was a little trickier. I'm not sure if it was, I may have got more heat on it than I did on the other side, but it's a little more deformed. But nonetheless, this whole surface has pushed back about a centimeter maybe. And that has given us some pretty nice clearance there for that tire. I'm just going to rotate this tire a little bit further and make sure that it remains as good as it looks right now. Okay, so the tire has rotated past it. There's no additional hit on the screw itself. The scrubbing was there that was what was already present. And as on the other side, more work needs to be done where the tire comes into this panel. But that's just a bit of fussing around. We have definitely broken the back of it. I mean, just nothing but a heat gun, heat blasting away on this thing. 240 degrees C. Get all of this warmed up, get all of this area warmed up, and then kind of gently pushing in up against the angle, not forcing this way, but just kind of trying to push like this to make the whole thing move across. I'm pretty darn happy with this. It's worked out really well. All right, well, I am calling it done on that fender well reshaping work. I'm really happy with the results we've gotten. We've got clearance on the back that's at least adequate, and I've got more than enough clearance on the front side of that front tire. So yeah, I'm happy to call this complete and almost successful. not 100%, but close enough. Now, I've still got to get back in there and secure the fender wells properly because it's just the duct tape. So that's going to be our next video. That'll be coming up shortly, getting under there with some adhesive tapes and securing those fender wells up inside the frame rails and the chassis area of the vehicle. And then we'll take her out for a test drive. Matter of fact, I might take it out for a test drive before that and just see how much success we've had. All right, so you're definitely going to want to see that one if you've been following this series so far. So, you know, hit the like, hit the old subscribe with the bell on it so you get notified when that video comes out. And as always, thanks for watching.